Welcome to episode 475 of Pound for Pound Boxer Report. I'm your host, Michael. Everyone on mute, please. Um, Episode 475 of Pound for Pound Boxer Report. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, usual cast of characters, Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel from 4 Boxing News, and Ian Scriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
We are very pleased to report we have not been canceled by anybody yet.
Yeah, we have survived so far.
Apparently.
Yeah, that part. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, uh, podcast discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you wish to email us with any questions, thoughts, suggestions, etc., you can do so. P4P boxing at p4pboxingreport.com. If you're checking us out on YouTube and you see the description, you will see links to where to check us out on all social media platforms, links to the Facebook page, link which we're also airing now on Pound for Pound Box Report Facebook, links to the YouTube channel, links to the Twitter page. If you want to donate, got a Cash Me, PayPal links also in the description. Wouldn't matter to us if it's $1, $2, $5, etc. Whatever you wish to contribute, we will be grateful. It will help the overall production behind the scenes. And as I mentioned last week, Pound for Pound Box Report kind of has a sponsor right now. This page and yours truly is an official affiliate / ambassador for Navraj Fragrances. For those who follow me outside of the boxing space, they know I'm heavy into colognes and most things smell good. Well, Navraj Fragrances is a fragrance company out of Florida. If you use the code Michael W, MICHAELW P4P, you can get 15% off of any and all products over on Navraj Fragrances, NavrajFragrances.com. And repeat that, Michael W P4P, to get 15% off of any and all products on over at Navraj Fragrances. The two main fragrances right now are Irrelevant, which you can use for the spring and the summer, and D. Omari, which is a fragrance that's really, really good for the fall and winter. Whether you, Gail, want to buy something for yourself, then you want to buy something for yourself, or um, significant other, please make sure to use that code, or spread the word about the code. Again, Michael WP4P, to get 15% off anything related to Navraj Fragrances. May I also add, they also have body care products as well. Let's get things going this evening. Let's not beat around the bush, because there were so many fights to recap this weekend. I didn't even get all of them up there. I omitted one in particular because if we do all the recaps, it would eat up the bulk of our show. So I'm gonna split these up, have everybody talk about two main fights, and then I'm gonna split the recap stuff for everybody else. The first main fight is the big fight of the weekend, and that is took place in Vegas at Reliance Stadium, where the Raiders play. Canelo Alvarez defending his super middleweight belts. He's undisputed at that division against Terence Crawford, moving up technically 2 divisions, though I would say 3, because he only had one fight at 154 before he made the decision to challenge Canelo at 168, Gail. And when we talked about this fight last week, when we previewed it, I felt that Crawford, despite moving up in weight, from a pure skills standpoint, he could beat Canelo. And he did just that. I named this masterful performance for a reason. It was based largely in part to what he did in the ring Saturday night. Um, for people who thought he was just going to move around, move around, move around, he did not do that. There were multiple points during the fight that not only did he stand front and center, he was even on the front foot at various points of this contest. Uh, the jab, the combinations, the ring IQ. He showed a chin because he got hit a couple of times. And I love the way that he closed the show to finish the bout. Sterling performance by Bud. He won by unanimous decisions. Forget the scorecard. 8-4, 7-5. I had it 9-3 on my personal card. Uh, the performance of the year, and I'm saying it right now, this cemented him as the fighter of the year for 2025.
Well, it is only September, and we're all dealing with recency bias, but it is very hard not to get excited about what we saw on Saturday. And Bud Crawford has every right from here to the end of time to be saying, "Told you so. I told you so." All
And he
fighters,
said so on the post fight, and
yes,
particularly, to
yes, he
one
did.
guy who, had a ridiculous scorecard, but I may talk about that later.
And part of the reason a lot of us who've seen a lot of boxing and seen a lot of boxing in Las Vegas and seen a lot of Canelo fights in Las Vegas thought in a close fight, it would be very hard for Bud to win on the scorecards. And given the great chin on Canelo, which did hold up, it was going to be a decision. Either way, none of us saw it as a knockout, and Crawford had admitted as such too. Canelo doesn't put up the punch stat numbers necessary anymore as he is an older, bigger fighter, to score these knockouts. He gets them by attrition, but the last really big one he got, other than dropping Berlanga and Munguia, the only stoppage he ground out was Caleb Plant that we're used to. So we knew that they were going to go to the distance, and if you look back in particular at the fight he had with Dmitry Bivol, Bivol won that fight without question. Nobody's ever disagreed that he probably won 10, if not more, of the 12 rounds, Bivol. But he still barely, narrowly won the fight. We thought something similar might happen on Saturday if it was close. Well, truthfully, it was close because after 10 rounds, this fight was even on the scorecards after 10 rounds. But Crawford did what a champion does. He was told in the corner by his longtime trainer, Brian McIntyre, "You got to win the championship rounds. You got to win those rounds." And he's looking at him like, "Ooh, okay." Bomac also said something very similar to Crawford, which was really memorable to me. When he fought Sean Porter, he told him the same thing, except in that fight, he said, "We're behind." And Bud looked at him like, "What? Are you kidding?" Well, then he went and knocked out Porter in the next round. He did something even more impressive. He stepped on the gas. He got even more up in Canelo's grill than he already was. And you could see him recognizing how much he was dominating the fight at that point when he really leaned in hard. He started having fun. That's when you saw him kind of smiling, stuck out his tongue at Canelo. But what you also saw that really tells you even more about how that fight ended is how frustrated Canelo looked. I have never, ever seen him in almost 70 fights now look like that, ever. That's what Terence Crawford does to his opponents. He was not afraid of him. His stamina was excellent. Bud's chin was also outstanding. The only time it looked like he ever really took a hard punch was actually near the end of the 12th round. And just for that split second, I thought, oh, are we going to have a disaster here? Are we going to have somebody pull it out? Are we going to have a Ray Ford moment? No, Bud hung on. He didn't do anything stupid. And, didn't try to fight his way off of it. He showed every skill set you need to be absolutely elite with a capital E. Ring generalship. His conditioning was phenomenal. His footwork was phenomenal. He came out as a southpaw and he stayed that way all 12 rounds. He and Bomac must have known that Canelo isn't a big fan of southpaws, and that also would open up those body shots, which Crawford drilled Canelo multiple times, and he doesn't like it. I mean, who likes it to the body? Nobody likes it, but it adds that wrinkle of something for Canelo to have to worry about. And I think what impressed most viewers was all this time the discussion has been, this fight can't happen. Crawford's way too small. Well, this fight's not going to do all that. It's not going to be all that great. You know, Crawford, it's going to be slow when he puts on all that much weight. And then people saw him, and he was so bulked up, and they thought, well, that's not going to be good, for his performance, carrying all that upper body, and he's going to be slow. He was none of those things. None. He carried the weight beautifully. He got in condition exactly the right way. He didn't just put it on everywhere. He put on muscle. It took him a year to do it, and he looked great. Now, he did say after the fight he's not sticking around, and we'll talk about what's next in a few minutes. But it was everything that man has worked for his entire career, realized in front of a massive audience on Saturday. And God bless him, he earned it.
Indeed. Read a comment here from Compliance. He said Bud takes away the opponent's best attribute. Canelo's left hook was countered, and it discouraged him from throwing it. The jabs to Canelo's high guard kept him from getting going. Excuse me. Here's the thing, Daniel. To Gail's last point about the weight, and there was a big issue during the lead up. I think what people forgot about Bud, that even though he began his career at 35, right? Won his first world title at that weight and proceeds to go up 35, 40, 47, 54, and won ultimately 168 for this fight. Even when he was at the lower weight, and you really shouldn't do this, but he was able to get away with it. He was the dude who always ballooned up in between fights. When he was at 35, 40, he was walking around in the 160s. When he was at 147, he was walking around in the 170s. He was a guy who kept coming down, who kept having to come down drastically. So even though he was fighting at 168, he still had to come down. It wasn't a situation where Roy had to necessarily, he didn't have to, put it this way, Daniel, he didn't have to bulk up in the same way that Roy Jones had to bulk up fighting Ruiz at heavyweight. Why? Because Roy never was a fighter who had to sweat and melt down to 168 in the way that Bud had to when he was fighting at 35, 40, and 47 in particular, because quiet as kept, Spence wasn't the only one who was struggling to make weight for that fight. Bud was too. Secondly, it's not like Canelo isn't a smart fighter. It's not like Canelo isn't a skilled fighter, but there are levels to this, right? It wasn't just the IQ of Bud Crawford, in my opinion, Daniel. It was his creativity, his punch distribution, the replay that you saw over and over on social of him throwing that left hook, left to the body, straight left to the body, coming right back, coming right back with a left hook to the head, while all maintaining his hand discipline and protecting himself from not getting countered. That's grade. That is A1 level stuff. If other fighters would try that, they would get hit. They couldn't. They probably hurt themselves trying that kind of thing. Just like in the same
It's
way when Roy Jones would throw certain combinations, or Floyd would throw certain combinations. You can't teach that. That's special stuff, and that's what Bud showed in this fight.
yeah. When we did the preview, that was my main concern. It was mainly the amount of weight that he put on. Not so much that he had to walk around with. It was just mainly the fact that he did have to cut down so much weight every single time, and then jumping up essentially 21 pounds to make this fight. It actually benefited him a lot better because Gil's right. He didn't just put on weight to put it on. He put on muscle and he put it on particularly in the upper body, which was actually, when you look at thinking about it in hindsight, very, very smart because it's somewhat neutralized not only the left hook of Canelo, or express the left hook to the face, but also the left hook to the body. Because Canelo was landing those shots. And Canelo's those body shots that will hurt you. And even though you could tell Bud felt them, it didn't bother him in the way that you saw other fighters get bothered. And then on top of that, the fact that like this is what I'm gonna have to call Crawford probably this generation's Sugar Ray Leonard, because we have to remember Sugar Ray Leonard absolutely waited till he saw Marvin Hagler just get slow enough to actually challenge him at 160. And that's more than likely what Bud saw. He saw probably Bud versus Bivol, said Bud versus Berlington. So like, okay, he slowed down just enough where I can counter him with combinations, and my more natural speed and my longer reach are going to be complete advantages, which is what they were. One of the things Canelo was not able to, and he admitted this in the post-fight interview, he said where he couldn't crack the code of Crawford is the fact that he couldn't really get inside the way he can other fighters. And we have to think about it, he was able to do so against somebody like Callum Smith, who is a very long range fighter, but he wasn't able to against Bud. And Bud was able to make sure to land just enough body combinations, head combinations to keep Canelo. And that is something that you cannot teach. It is something that a fighter just has, that he's able to pull out of the bag. It was a beautiful sight to see. I had my personal scorecard, I did have it tied as well after 10 rounds. Because after 8, I had Canelo up 2. But then Bud turned it on. Won the next 4 rounds and then won them pretty handily. Like the only one that was a little bit worrisome was the last one, mainly just because Canelo was starting to land a couple of shots. And in the end, Bud was able to pull it off. It's one of the best performances you're ever going to see. And this is probably the second performance in 3 fights where Terence Crawford has not only exceeded expectations, but he succeeded in such a way where you question why you even doubted him in the first place.
You hinted at the future of Bud Crawford. Let's delve into that now, Gail and Daniel. During the post fight, right? Bud was saying that this is the pinnacle. Um, he basically said he has no more to prove to anybody. um, he was giving hints, suggestions that this may be the end for him. But you also heard rumblings of him. But you also heard him say, to your point, Gail, that he's not fighting in 168 and may move down to 160. If you were him, what would you do next? I know for me personally, I would hang up my gloves and wait till the Hall of Fame calls in another 5 years, because he's already on record saying he's not going to fight Boots at 54. Uh, there's no one else, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you could conceivably fight an Ala Kamuli at 160, but that don't bring you no money. That don't bring you no real, buzz from the folks. So why not just pack it in? He's had a hell of a career. Go out on top.
He absolutely could. He could pack it in. No one would begrudge him. He could do very much like Andre Ward did and walk away with a clean record, with some truly amazing and historic accomplishments. You know, what everybody needs to recognize is what that one fight brought for Bud. He, and I've got it's such a long list of accomplishments, you have to actually look them up. He becomes, uh, hang on, let me get that set here. So he is the first fighter in men's boxing, because Clarissa Shields has done this, but he's the first male to become a 3-weight division undisputed world champion: super lightweight, welterweight, super middleweight. He is also now a 4-division lineal champion, and the only two have done that besides Crawford are Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. And he's also one of only 6 male fighters in history to win titles in 5 divisions, right? Mayweather, Pacquiao, Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Oscar De La Hoya. And those accomplishments meant a lot to him. He had talked about them before the fight, and as well they should. So after the fight, he made it very clear he has no intention to campaign at 168. This is one and done. Yeah, there's no reason he needs to entertain any mandatories or any of that. He did it. We all saw him do it. That's good. He made it clear he wasn't going to 154. So, that makes his options limited. Somebody asked him, I think it was Mark Kriegel, about, well, you're going to light heavyweight, and he just laughed. He was like, no, hell no, that's not happening. But what he said was, well, I might go to 160. He said that unprompted. He volunteered that. Pay attention to that. It wasn't the answer to someone pointedly saying to him, do you think you would like to go back and pick up middleweight? He volunteered it. So it's on his mind. No one planted it there. He's already thinking about it. Now, he could take all the time he wants to take the kids on vacation. He talked about going to Cracker Barrel, which was hilarious, and that's probably it. It's probably the most glamorous thing he's going to do post-fight is he did stick around in Las Vegas, and he showed up at the Las Vegas Raiders LA Chargers football game and met Tom Brady, and Turkey was there because he's, promoting this new flag football competition they're going to stage in Saudi Arabia. So I think Bud probably got invited with Turkey to sort of come along for the show at Allegiant Stadium the next day. But other than that, he'll go back home, hang out, enjoy being outdoors and being with his kids, and why shouldn't he? And he's got all the money in the world to do it. And he could sit and think about it for a while and see if the desire drives him back in the gym, see if the opportunity presents itself. Does he need to fight again? No, he absolutely does not. But if he is going to do it, it does make sense for him to go pick up a belt in another division, because at this point it's going to be legacy and accomplishments for him. Can he notch one more belt, right? So Alam Kanuli is currently the unified champion because he holds the WBO belt and the IBF belt.
Maybe
Carlos,
Laura.
well, no, Carlos Adames holds the WBC belt. I'd go after Carlos Adames. I really would. It's all going to depend on two things. Two things have to happen to make this work. Number one, obviously, Bud has to decide he wants to do it. Number two, Turkey has to decide he wants to see it and pay for it. For the first time, though, Bud is the guy who will drive ticket sales. People will go
Right.
to see him now, especially if they think it's going to be his last fight, which he damn well could be. He's a ticket seller now. Staged in the right place, the opponent wouldn't matter quite as much. So he'd need to be a little bit cagey about who he picks. I'm not 100% sold on whether Alam Kanuli is the right guy for him. He's got a lot of power. He's younger. He's, however, not overly tall. He's just a
Well, I
well.
would say that Alec Canuli's like 6 foot.
He's 6 foot, yeah, but he's not a 6'2". He's not Hamza Shiraz, right? So he's tall for the division, but he's not. I mean, he's not the equivalent of Sebastian Fundora. Okay, so it's there, but Bud's never had a problem fighting guys that are taller, so it's doable, but we'll get an answer in due time. Right now, he's going to take the rest of the year off. Omaha's going to throw him a parade. It'll be awesome. And he can enjoy the holidays with his family. And then beginning of the year, circle back around, talk to his team, who he really trusts. And that is another asset, in my opinion, that Terence Crawford has. He has stuck with his team, led by Brian McIntyre's trainer, his entire career. He hasn't jumped around. He hasn't gone to a more glamorous or bigger name gym in Houston or LA or New York. No, he stayed in the Midwest. He stayed loyal to that team. They've been with him all that time. They celebrated with him and his family, and that really means something. So just phenomenal. And isn't it nice to have an American-born fighter again in this position? As Americans, certainly we know we have a lot of our international audience listening, but we don't get this feeling all that often in the current environment, so we need to enjoy it.
What do we make of Canelo in the aftermath of this, Daniel? What's his future?
Well, just like Gail talked about, that Bud could easily just pack it up and just wait until the call to Castaneda. Canelo can easily just do the same thing and go and actually play golf, because that's been one of his passion projects lately. The main interesting issue when it comes to Canelo is you can't go, like, if you move up to 175, you do run into Bivol and you do run to Perturbia. Even though you could probably beat Perturbia if you know Bivol's going to be right there, that's the other puzzle that he hasn't been able to break. And that leaves, unfortunately, only one other option. And now, especially with no belts, it's just a matter of pride at this point. There's only one other fighter people want to see Canelo Alvarez against, and that's David Benavidez.
That ain't happening.
There's no more, but that's the only option to stay at 168. Otherwise, 175, you try to fight Perturbia. If you try to fight Bivol, Perturbia, you still probably could beat. Bivol, you've already proven that you likely can't beat. So
No,
I would start thinking maybe. Say again?
No, he's got options. If Turkey wants to pay for another Canelo fight, and remember, Canelo has 2 more fights on his contract with His Excellency.
Yeah.
And so you got Hamza Shiraz, who His Excellency really likes, who was ringside.
That's
or,
what I'm thinking.
or Christian and Mbilli. Now, if I'm Canelo, I take Shiraz over Mbilli any day because Mbilli is a buzzsaw. Plus, everyone's going to want to see him in a rematch of his fight. So,
And we'll talk about that in a bit in terms of rematch. But I got a distinct feeling that Turkey may steer Canelo in the direction of a fight with Shiraz in 2026.
I think so too. I think that's the matchup they want. You got to catch these guys early, right? Because I do think Shiraz has the potential to develop into an extremely good fighter. He's still doing a little bit of learning on the job, right? So if you're going to do it, now is the time. That's the kind of fight he's going to do. Or, he wants to cash out with Jake Paul. I know. I'm waiting for you, Michael, to
No.
groan, right? But he could do it. And it'd be a shit ton of money. No question. It'd sell like crazy because if anybody is going to drop Jake Paul with a body shot, it's going to be Canelo Alvarez, right? I'm not sure Jake would ever do it, so I think you're probably safe. But there are options. But Canelo does, when he is home, and home being now San Diego County, northern San Diego, he belongs to the Del Mar Country Club, private golf course. When he is home, he golfs every single day. Every single day. And he's pretty good. Is he good enough to be a pro? He's good enough to be a pro on the Live Golf Tour. You heard it here first.
Let's move on and talk about the aforementioned Christian Mbilli. I'll start with you, Daniel. On the undercard of Canelo and Bud, Mbilli fought Lester Martinez. Turned out to be just war from the opening bell. Fantastic fight. Lucky that Bud put on the performance that he did. If not, Billy and Martinez would have stolen the show, would have been the fight of the night. One of the best fights of the year for me, candidate for fight of the year, ended in a draw. The fans want to see it again. And breaking news, it looks like we may see it again as that fight has been, that rematch has been ordered by the WBC.
This was, and Billy Martinez was initially lined up for Mbilli to have shelter. Basically, the mentality was this is his audition for Canelo. But Martinez, because let's say he was coming from, he is an Olympian, and having that pride of an Olympian, brought out something in Mbilli that he probably didn't think he needed to. He needed to grind. And those two grinded almost to dust by the end of the fight, but it was so great. You saw the guys get inside, counter combinations, counter power shots. It was one of those great throwback fights that you can always count on to steal the show. You can always count on one of those fights to come in, and it doesn't matter who the headliner is. It doesn't matter what the money line is. Unless something really big happens, which luckily in this case it did with Bud, you're going to remember that fight in the undercard. I'm glad WBC's actually ordering the rematch because I would love to see it. I had no problem at all with the draw. Like those two traded shots all night long. They deserve another shot because depending on how soon Bud decides his fate, that opens it up for the WBC to make it a full title. So that becomes an actual championship fight.
Fight fans fight, Gail. Bottom line, that was a whole lot of fun.
And fans deserve a fight like that once in a while. Just a banger, a grinder. Was there a lot of skill there? Well, there was skill, but was there finesse, I should say? Was it the kind of performance we saw later in the main event from Crawford in particular? No. Do we care? No. And what was also nice was it was frankly such a contrast to a lot of other fights on the card. It was by far the best fight on the card, not the main event, right? It was by far the best fight of the undercard. And the truth is, it really should have been the co-main event, and that would have been the right place for it. The fighter in the co-main event, the A side, is a particular favorite and protege of Dana White, and that was everybody's favorite in Dana, to put Callum Walsh in that co-main. Callum's a nice kid. He's working his way up. He shouldn't have been in that fight. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, shouldn't have been there, and quite frankly, that fight should have been flipped with Mbilli and Martinez. What in blue hell were the organizers thinking?
Well, and
of
it should have
putting
been 8 rounds, for Pete's sake. I mean,
right?
did we really need to watch that much of basically the same round over and over? The only plus is that gave everyone their break to go into the kitchen, or if you're at the venue, go to the bar, refresh your snacks, have your little, potty stop. I mean, that is a blessing. But it's
If you
usually
want to call it
not
that.
what's intended by the co-main. Okay, we'll make the best of it as fans. We know how to work around this. And unfortunately, because there was no early knockout, and because there was no knockout in Mbilli and Martinez, the main event started way too late. That has become a massive problem on these Saudi General Entertainment Authority cards. They've gotten better along the last few years at stripping out all the extras and too many fights and concerts. They did have a little bit of that going on, but that ring walk should have happened an hour and a half before it did. For a fact there were a lot of people watching on the East Coast. You two are there. For me, not that big a deal in California. Vegas crowd, they lose all sense of time anyway. But if you're watching on the East Coast, you can't be sitting around up till 2 a.m. to watch the main event. Hopefully they all caught it the next day, and that is the beauty of having it done on Netflix. But yeah, that's just should not be happening.
Indeed. Let's move on to talk about the other big fight that took place this past weekend. That was in Nagoya, Japan. I'm going back to you on this one, Gail. I was very excited about the bout between Naoya Inoue and Murodjon Akhmadaliev. I went so far as to say I thought Akhmadaliev would give Monster Inoue a really tough go. Did not turn out to be the case, as Inoue was dominant during a 12-round win with the distance for one of the few times in his career. When we talked about this last week, one of my things was I had not seen the boxer Inoue, the mover Inoue, the quick twitch Inoue since the fight against Fulton. He returned to that form in this fight. I thought that MJ would, at the very least, match, if not slightly exceed, Inoue when it comes to hand speed. Inoue was the far faster fighter. Hands and feet, did excellent body work to sap some of the strength out of Akhmadaliev, and it got to a point where Akhmadaliev was just flustered throughout. Could not do nothing for the most part, minus the last maybe 10 seconds when he seemed to slightly stun Inoue. But outside of that, Naoya Inoue was in complete control. For me, this was his best performance since the knockout of Fulton 2 years ago.
It was dazzling. It was just dazzling. The fight flew. It moved along so quickly. And for a fight that didn't have a lot of, brawling offense or firepower, sometimes they can really grind along and not be that aesthetically pleasing to the fan. But Inoue is such a talent that it was a delight to watch. Really surprising that Akhmadaliev couldn't figure out a way to get to Inoue, but the speed, the hand speed, the foot speed, the skills, he was like him. It's like he was trying to grab Jello. I mean, he just couldn't do it. And a little like Canelo, a few hours before on the other side of the world, you could just see Akhmadaliev's frustration growing, and that does not help a fighter problem solve in the ring when they're in that situation. The Diaz brothers team tried to, calm him down, tried to talk him through it. It was just not happening. And make no mistake, it was not only a technical fight. Because if you took a look at Akhmadaliev's face after the fight, he was busted up good. He got his face snapped by Inoue's jab. He took shots to the body, but Inoue resisted his tendency to want to brawl, which he admitted to after the Cardenas fight, where he barely avoided getting knocked out. He really was on the brink of disaster in that fight. I don't think, looking back, I was there. We were shocked by it, and it was clear he was really hurt by that shot. He managed to survive, but yeah, he walked right up to the edge of the cliff on that one. So I think that he and his father trainer Shingo Inoue had a bit of a chat, and they were going to risk that again because it also happened when he faced Luis Neri, because he likes to get in there. He loves it. And he admitted after the Cardenas fight, he's like, well, as you see, as you can see, I like to brawl. He couldn't do that this time. And that's what was such a smart game plan, what gave him such a good performance. I mean, this was supposed to be his toughest challenge, and he breezed through it. It was truly impressive. What an impressive weekend of boxing, from Las Vegas to Japan. For everybody who, just stayed up and rode it out, we were rewarded with a really, really terrific fight.
And what's next up for Inoue is a fight in December in Saudi Arabia as part of the Riyadh season against Alan Picasso. Then, should he win, a fight with Junto Nakatani, who was in attendance for Inoue and Akhmadaliev. Interesting moment that took place afterwards with Inoue holding the mic, being interviewed in the ring. Noticed that Nakatani was walking away, got up from his seat, was getting ready to walk out the building, and then Inoue was like, ho, wait a minute, Nakatani, I see you. I got one more fight to go, and then we're basically going to get it on, and I'm going to take care of you next year. Interesting moment. Nakatani acknowledged each other for usually the Japan crowd is usually rather subdued, but they rose to their feet during that moment. I loved it. That's the kind of thing that you want to see, and it for serious boxing fans in particular, it gets you amped up even more. We now know that Nakatani is officially moved up to 122. He's going to fight on the undercard of Inoue and Picasso. If both win, anticipate a stage stare down. But yeah, one
That
more fight
was
to go for both men.
was so much
And
fun.
we will see them too in the Tokyo Dome, spring of 2026.
Yeah, make your plans, everybody. They were both enjoying the moment. Inoue had, basically for him a pretty easy night against Akhmadaliev. So he was feeling himself. He was very chatty in his post-fight remarks. It seemed like he just still had a lot of energy he hadn't used up, and he calls out Nakatani. He's like, Nakatani song. Oh, brother, good to be seeing you. If you've looked at social media at all, where you can see Japanese fan comments and thanks to Google Translate them, they loved it. This is the fight they have been waiting for, the hardcore fans in Japan. And I say hardcore only because it's a boxing crazy country and they're all hardcore fans. The fans in Japan see this as like two manga heroes, right? Getting ready to face each other. The long plot lines drawing them toward each other. And they cannot wait. If this fight isn't staged that way and the posters and all of that in the manga style, I will be so disappointed. But that's the only thing we'll be disappointed about. This is going to be an amazing fight. And it's maybe 9-10 months away. Can't wait.
Yeah, and on the undercard of this fight between the Monster and MJ had a bit what's considered an upset. Yoshiki Takei defending his WBO 118-pound belts against Christian Medina, who was thought of as a decent fighter, but in considerable underdog. And shout out to I forgot who it was on ESPN who basically looked at this fight and said, "Wait a minute, something could happen here." Medina has a heck of a shot. He was basing on style, and turned out that was the case. As I'll be blunt about it. Takei got blitzed. Medina put him down in the first round, and he just proceeded to overpower Takei. Takei, he tried hard, but he had nothing to keep Medina off of him. And every time the Mexican Medina was able to land with a hard shot, moved Takei, ultimately stopped him in the fourth. And Daniel, we always talk about when it comes to Mexican fighters, Mexico as a boxing country, the talent pool is pretty rich, pretty deep, and there's always a situation where a Mexican fighter will spring up from nowhere and win a world title. That was the case here. It was the performance was to the point that they could rematch, but I don't know if Takei has anything to hold Medina off.
Yeah, that was. Once I saw the knockdown in the first round, and we're like, "Oh, this is going to be one of those fights." And it's true when it comes to, particularly when it comes to Mexican fighters, it's always the ones that very little heralded. They're mainly in there because you think their record is papered a little bit, but they know they got to come in. They got to have a chip on their shoulders. Sometimes a champion just looks past them. The guy didn't look like he looked to pass him. He just got bum rushed by Medina. He took, luckily, a good advantage of it. Now, should these guys rematch? Part of me says yes, because it's guy could say, I learned my lesson, I know what I need to do, but it's just the way he got mollywopped that may push it aside and said, you know what? I'll go another round because I don't need to experience that again.
Yeah, indeed. The question is, what will Medina do from now? Based on this performance, he could have a pretty decent run as champion. And Takai, he has to dust himself off and recover not just physically and mentally from this pretty devastating loss. One fighter note I didn't put in the description, and that is Patty Donovan and Lewis Crocker fought for the vacant IBF welterweight belt, the belt that was vacated by Boots Ennis also this past weekend. And Belfast, a rematch of a controversial win for Crocker, in which he got hit after the bell after losing most of the rounds during that first fight with Patty Donovan. The difference in this fight to me were two knockdowns from Crocker, one in round two, the other one in round six via counter shots. Outside of that, a strong argument can be made that Donovan won the majority of the other rounds. And I think he was in pretty much had his way during the second half of the contest. The question is, what's going to be next? Will we see a trilogy between these two? I know there are fans on the other side of the pond who are not happy with the result of the fight, felt that Donovan edged it out. But during the post fight, Croc was talking about having a title defense against Conor Benn. Ben, of course, fighting Chris Eubank Jr. in a rematch in November. Excuse me. We will see what happened. Quasi semi controversial. Um, I wouldn't push back for those who felt that Donovan won, but for Louis Crocker, he fulfills his dream of winning a world title. Last fight we're going to talk about here, Gail, and that took place kind of under the radar of all the Bud and Canelo and Inoue and Akhmadaliev stuff. A couple of days before those two fights, um, in California, um, Anthony Olascuaga defended his belt at 108 pounds, no, 112 pounds, excuse me, WBO version. Um, Juan Carlos Rivera, we said that it had all the looks of an opportunity for Olascuaga to look impressive in a voluntary title defense. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was. He was actually in the main event in Las Vegas
I'm so
in the Fontainebleau hotel,
Las
which was the fight hotel for Canelo Crawford fight week.
Vegas. My apologies, not
Yeah,
California. My bad.
and what's notable wasn't just the location; it was meant to be the first in this new fight series that Dana White and Turkey Al-Sheikh are going to promote, which they're going to call apparently the Underdog. This is their prospect series they're trying to build. This is a series where they're going to sign fighters to kind of their own internal stable. So they wanted to stage how they're going to look and the venue, and so they're juicing it up with some rules that get read, which are basically fight hard and trying to make it look a little bit gritty. They have a cosplaying female announcer who's out in the crowd. It was very interesting staging, but they put Olascuaga in the main event for this. It's hardly a prospect, right? But still, it gave him an opportunity for a title defense. And yeah, he went through Camacho like a knife through butter, honestly. He got in there, he got busy in a hurry, he connected with his right hand right away. He saw that he was already starting to do damage. He threw a combination that was the right hand with an uppercut and a flurry of additional punches. Camacho was already in trouble. So it took him just a little into the second round to get his business done. And, the crowd didn't mind. It had been a night of several fights. I think there were 5 or 6 fights on the card. And so it was kind of fun for people to see a real quick knockout, and he looked good. Now, what he says he wants to do after this is get a unification fight with Ricardo Sandoval, the fighter that scored the big upset over Kenshiro Teraji in July. And so we'll see if those talks come to something. I think that's a very doable fight. That would be an all Southern California showdown. Damn it, don't put that in Las Vegas. Bring it out here. Bring it out here so all the Southern California fans, all the Mexican American fans can watch that showdown. That'd be a lot of fun. I'm personally just very happy that, as we've talked about, the big fight, what could very well end up being called the fight of the year this week. We had a lot of other fighters in the smaller weight divisions that are getting some shine, that are getting some attention. it always pleases me to see that. These guys are super talented. They're fun to watch. And so Olascuaga, kind of starting the week off with his knockout win was an awfully nice touch. Also, a really good fight on the undercard for Justin Valoria, who's the nephew of Brian Valoria, former world champion. And I like the way he's coming along too. So keep your eye out for him, Justin Valoria.
Let's head to some news here, and sad, shocking development as in the early hours of Sunday morning, while a lot of folks were, particularly hardcore set, was up watching um, Inoue and Akhmadaliev. News broke that um, fan favorite Ricky Hatton, right, suddenly had passed away, found unalived in his home, uh, only 46 years old, two division champion, he's came to real prominence back in '05 uh, when he upset Costa Zoo in Hatton's home backyard of Manchester, right? Eventually became a unified champion, did Hatton. Fought the fought, uh, became unified champion at 140, excuse me. Went up to 147 and won a welterweight title against Luis Collazo. He fought the likes, Hatton fought the likes of Zoo, fought the likes of Mousa, Collazo, Jose Luis Castillo, Floyd, Paul Malignaggi. Will turn out to be a disastrous fight against Manny Pacquiao. Um, all things considered, Gil and Daniel, his shelf life in the sport was very, very short, but he left a lot of memories. A fan favorite to many boxing fans, a star um, over in the UK area. He had his troubles outside of the ring, but he seemed to have his life back in order, which makes this news even more surprising. Once again, sadly, surprising, tragic passing of Ricky Hattingale.
A lot of us had been up all night, right? After the Canelo fight and the card from Japan. And whether you had a few moments of, midnight nap or none at all or something, when this popped into our inboxes in the morning, it was almost seemed like a hallucination. It didn't quite seem real. But apparently, Greater Manchester police were called by a neighbor to do a welfare check because they hadn't seen Ricky in quite a few days. And sure enough, found him in his home. What a shame at age 46. And yeah, he had been very open about having serious addiction issues, apparently alcohol, but drugs as well, and mental health issues. Like a lot of athletes, who are starting to be more forthcoming about dealing with it, battling with it, beating it, trying to be transparent with their fans, and I think use their situations as examples of trying to fight through it, a message of hope, if you will. Um, but clearly, all of his life, his lifestyle, some of these very hard fights he had been in, we can't really deny the accumulation there. But what was interesting is it was just about 6 weeks ago, he had announced he was going to come back and take on a professional boxer, also either coming back or at least in his age range. I believe the other fighter was 41, and heading a fight card in Dubai in a couple of months. So he'd been training. He was posting himself in the gym on his Instagram feed. You'd see him on the treadmill. In fact, that was the last post he made. He's, hitting the bag, getting into shape, looked like he was looking forward to it. When the fight was announced, there was a little bit of eye rolling. The last time he'd been in the ring was an exhibition with Marco Antonio Barrera, as it turned out. But that was 3 years ago. He had also been acting as a trainer for younger fighters, and his son Campbell Hatton was starting to pursue a professional career, and famous, the sons of famous fighters with those famous last names with so many expectations on them. Campbell had a rough road up, and he was doing it under a massive spotlight. Most young fighters without a lot of amateur background, which Campbell did not have, you're not watching them in those 4 rounders under a microscope. And that was happening to Campbell. And then he had 2 losses back to back to the same fighter. He lost the first fight, and then he lost a rematch. And Campbell had decided to retire recently. What also had taken place, not only did Campbell have the 2 losses, Campbell's best friend passed away, and apparently it was very rough on him, and it was very rough on Dad. And Campbell decided to retire after that. So clearly there was a lot going on. And what makes this so sad is Ricky Hatton has the kind of affection from fans in Great Britain, it seems to me, in many ways very similar to the affection that so many boxing fans have had and have for Arturo Gatti, right? Warriors, a man of the people, love their fans as much as the fans love them, always willing to interact. Hatton would sit there and talk to anybody. He'd buy you a beer or you'd buy him one. And that has a lot to do with how fans react to a fighter. Thank goodness last year in the class of 2024, those of us in the Boxing Writers Association of America inducted Ricky into the Hall of Fame. Little did we know that, 18 months later, he'd no longer be with us. But I guarantee you, nobody had a better time at Hall of Fame weekend that year than Ricky Hatton did. And that's the way he lived his life.
Your reaction, Daniel?
I woke up to that, fortunately. And it's always sad to see somebody die, especially when I'll admit that. Like I said, I'm not that much younger than Ricky Hatton was. So part of it really does hit home, particularly with the way it done and the way it happened, and the struggles, what he's went through, and how he's been trying to bounce back. And then you look at the career that he had. Yeah, he didn't have like the length of the career that you would think would warrant somebody of that cold following. But no, that's the main reason why it's so special. He was one of those fighters that you could always guarantee that at least 10,000 people would fly out. It didn't matter from where they had to go to. They would go there to support Ricky Hatton. That is something regardless of their fight skill, pedigree. That is something special. And unfortunately, he said he succumbed to unfortunately a lot of pressure that we don't know what it ultimately led to, but I do send condolences to Campbell, send condolences to the entire family, to the fan base. Like I said, I'm not that much younger than Ricky Hatton, so this one hurts particularly.
I echo Daniel's sentiments. As of this recording, there's been no word on the cause of his passing. Um, and I will speak on behalf of everybody here, um, pound for pound boxing support, and really just the boxing community in general, if I dare do so myself. Send our condolences and thoughts and prayers to um, the family, the friends, the loved ones of Ricky Hatton, who once again died in the early morning. Who we got word in the early morning hours of this past Sunday, um, September 15th, that he had passed away at age 46. May he rest in power. Hate to move on from that sad development to other boxing news, but we must. That's the way of this world, of this boxing business. As I think it was the last episode, Gail, maybe a couple episodes back, that there was the announce. It was the last episode that the announcement of an exhibition between Tank Davis and Jake Paul in Atlanta. And during that episode, you kind of warned everybody, not so fast, while everybody was reacting to that story, excuse me. Your thoughts, your focus was, this may not go down in the way that everybody thinks it does. And I'm gonna ask you to come to the front because you were absolutely right, particularly about this happening in Atlanta. You said don't think so, and it's turned out to be the case, as news broke today that this exhibition between Davis and Paul is going somewhere else.
Yep. The reason this got on my radar so quickly is, it is somewhat an unusual location, not completely, but, this was originally set for the State Farm Arena in Atlanta. Atlanta has hosted some big fights, some big ticket fights, but it's not a hotbed. And when you've got these sort of fights, you need a commission that knows what it's doing. And when you don't have a lot of events, it's not intended to be a criticism of the people who run the Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission. It's what they call their commission. They just don't get enough reps, right? They just aren't good at it. They haven't gone through a lot of the crazy stuff and all the nutty things that happen when you're promoting a big event. Unlike New York, New Jersey, California, Nevada, Texas at this point, and Florida now. So we have this card, big fanfare announced. Everybody gasps, about the picture of Jake and Tank. Well, the other guy that gasped, apparently, who did not love this, was the state athletic commissioner in Georgia. It's a guy named Rick Thompson. And apparently he was real irritated at this announcement because there had not been a vote by the commission whether or not to sanction this fight. And it is clearly stated in their rules, as by the way, it's stated in the rules of a lot of commissions in the United States, that it will not sanction any combat sports bout, professional or exhibition, if the opponents have and fight in divisions where there is more than a 9-pound weight differential. Okay, you give Tank Davis and Jake the most generous descriptions of their weight, and they are going to weigh at least 50 pounds apart, if not 60. Now, seriously, was the commission going to waive its rules or not? Well, we were scheduled to find out tomorrow because there's a meeting, their regular monthly meeting, where this was on the docket. And by the way, state commissions are all public agencies. You can go look all this stuff up on their websites. They have to have public documents. They're state agencies. So it was on the docket for their regular meeting tomorrow. And, I think MVP and PBC started thinking, this is going to be damned embarrassing if we just sit around and let them vote against sanctioning this fight. And clearly they started to realize that they had not done their due diligence, and the Georgia officials were telegraphing pretty clearly, no, we're not going to sanction this. And it was earlier today that Thompson confirmed to USA Today, of all things, that MVP had withdrawn their application for the permits and then withdrawn their rule waiver they had to file asking Georgia to let them do this. And he had said at the time, it's in the public's interest to know they're promoting something they should not have been. So it was early afternoon for most of us, mid-afternoon, that we suddenly got an announcement today from MVP saying, new venue for the fight. Same date, it's still planned for November 14th, but now it is going to take place in Miami, Florida, at the Kaseya Center. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Still streaming live on Netflix. Paul versus Davis. So apparently Jake versus Tank has been salvaged. But here's what's interesting. To my knowledge, the Florida Athletic Commission has not yet sanctioned the fight. They apply the same weight differential rules as Georgia does. I mean, it really is a fairly universal rule. The fight card is not currently listed on the Florida Commission's website. Now, the Florida Commission only meets quarterly, 4 times a year. It looks like the way their earlier schedule went this year, that their quarterly meeting will be this month, sometime in the next 2 weeks. So it's likely they will have this on their docket. The big difference between Florida and Georgia is that MVP stages all its prospect cards in Florida at the Caribe Real in Orlando, and they have staged several major fight cards. They obviously have an excellent relationship with the Florida Athletic Commission. I have a feeling this time, MVP is still fairly new to the promotion game. Credit to them, they're learning on the job, and I imagine after this, snafu with Georgia, that they were smart enough to have this behind the scenes conversation before they booked the new venue to say, you guys think you can see your way clear to sanctioning an exhibition here? And who knows what kind of rules they'll put on them, how many rounds, how many minutes around, what kind of gloves are they going to wear? We're going to get all of that stuff. This is strictly going to be an exhibition, everybody. It is not going to be a sanctioned fight. It was never intended as a sanctioned fight. And any bullshit you hear about, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to knock his, I'm not going to knock his block off, you're not allowed to do that in an exhibition. They'll sell it. They'll have a good time. In addition to the announcement this morning of the new venue, there was an announcement there will be 2 news conferences, fans invited to attend. One will be in New York, one will be in Miami. And that was another clue that this thing was perhaps going to go another direction. There was supposed to be a news conference scheduled Friday, and early this week, Boxing News Media got a note saying, we are postponing that. It's off the calendar. Stay tuned. Again, obviously, this was all being discussed behind the scenes. So I'm sure, Michael, you're very relieved to know Jake versus Tank is still on, but you're going to have to go a little farther south and east to see it in Miami versus Atlanta. And what's the moral of the story, boxing fans? This is why you never make non-refundable travel plans in boxing.
Ain't that the truth? Going to see it.
For a million reasons, do not do it.
Yeah.
That's my advice to you.
Going to see it, not I. I've said it before. This is a farce. I stay adamant. I don't budge from that of initial opinion. Just the weight disparity. I can't take this seriously, and no, I don't care if it is a quote unquote exhibition. Enough is enough. Let's move on to some fights here that's going to take place. One more thing. Quickly, Daniel. Um, we've talked about the modern day Four Kings, Tank, Teofimo, Shakur, Devin. It looks like we're going to get two of those supposed Four Kings in the ring. As word is that Shakur and Teofimo are on the verge of signing to fight each other as early as January next year.
This is again. I'm going to Paragale here. Don't make any non-refundable travel plans because these two have had this conversation before. They've had it when they were under the same promotional umbrella. Top Rank. Bob wasn't able to make it there. I unfortunately have a feeling that it's probably not going to happen again. This time, either the Blood Money Mark is not going to like it, or it's a situation where people have already poo-pooed the fight on it because it's two fighters that rely more on skill and counterpunching than people that are just going to do rock and sock and robots. That's particularly that's particularly telling with Shakur's reputation at the moment as far as a fighter. So I'll believe it when I see it because it is an interesting fight. It is a fight that I would love to see, but I don't have much hope for it.
Let's move on to some fights that are coming up this weekend. The bulk of it is going to feature the ladies, a particular unification bout down in 108 pounds. But first, foremost, Gail, uh, boxing's smallest division, 105 pounds, right? Features one of the best fighters in that lower weight ranks, and that is unified champion um, um, Oscar Collazo, right? Um, beat Daniel's boy, knockout CP Freshmont, stopped him in 7 last time out. Um, he's a kid who is reaching his prime, um, fighting Jayson Vayson, I believe his name is. He was impressive in his last time out. I think he will be just as impressive this time out on the road to what he thinks is becoming undisputed at 105 pounds.
If you haven't seen Oscar Collazo fight, I invite you to tune in to the Zone on Saturday night. He's in the main event. They're very wisely staging this at their desert venue that they love so much, Fantasy Springs Casino out there in the high desert, um, and also the home of their local stars, the Fundoras. So it's a great venue because the fans there pack the place. They are great about supporting their local fighters. They're great about supporting fight cards in general. So smart to take him out there and let him show off. He's exactly the kind of fighter all those high desert fans love. His opponent is a fighter out of the Philippines who I know very little about. He's 14-1. He has 8 knockouts. Um, he has fought all his fights outside the United States, the vast majority of them in the Philippines, a handful in Thailand, and a handful in Japan. So his only loss was in Japan. It was a complete shutout on the cards. But he looks like he'll be serviceable, somewhat competitive, hopefully. But Collazo is just so impressive and so much fun to watch. He's like the Tasmania devil got loose in the ring. I mean, he just goes wild. And he's a big knockout puncher. He is a come forward guy, just extremely entertaining. And, if you're a person that just doesn't normally follow the 105-pound division, you just might want to make an exception. He loves it. He loves the fans. You just tell he just enjoys the hell out of himself. Um, the fans love him. He loves them back. He's a great interview. He's super upbeat kind of guy. He always makes a big entrance. It's very smart to introduce him as a Puerto Rican fighter to the Southern California fans. And if he shows them a good time, they'll absolutely embrace him. So Oscar really loves him, has really given him a great platform. And so he's given him the main event is at his little desert hidey hole out there in the SoCal desert. And I will absolutely not miss a drive out to see that.
Indeed, that fight is going to take place in Indio. On the zone, on the undercard, Daniel, you have one of my favorite fighters, undisputed women's flyweight champion Gabriela Fundora, right? I believe she's better than her older brother, who's unified champion at 154 on the men's side. Gabriela, sweet, one of the sweetest women that you will find outside of the ring. Just joyous personality, baby face outside of the ring, but in the ring, she puts belt to ass. She doesn't just outbox these women, she punishes them. And unlike a lot of ladies, she gets knockouts, right? That's what she's been doing to become undisputed champion. She defends those belts against Alexis Kubicki, and I'll just put it on the record right now. It's hard to envision anyone who can really hang with Fundora at 112 pounds, and I think we will see that again this coming Saturday.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where you're gonna see a fighter that is gonna be probably at least 2 or 3 levels above their competition because right when it comes into the comparisons, Gabby Fundora, much in many ways like Caroline Dubois, has shown to probably be better skilled overall than their male siblings. And that's with Sebastian Fundora being one of the perennial fan favorites with the way that he fights. Gabby's probably gonna have fun in this fight. She's gonna take care of what she needs to do in business because luckily she's not a fighter that you can see like she's gonna get a big ego, that she's gonna forget the assignment that she needs to do. This is gonna be probably a smooth win for Fundora. It just depends on how long it's actually going to last.
Yeah, she has 4 knockouts in her last 5 fights. 4 knockouts in her last 5 fights. Let me repeat that. She is a seek and destroy fighter. And as far as people saying she's better than her brother, the first one to tell you she's a better fighter than me is her brother. He has said that for years. Oh yeah, she kicks my ass in the gym. She's way better than I am. He's not lying. He is not lying. You know what? They live out there in the high desert. They have a big ranch. You know, before she goes out and does her morning run or she trains, she feeds the goats, right? They have a gym on the property that her father built. And that's, you know what, a lot of people that live out there in the high desert, it is very much part of their personality. They love it. They love, you know, sort of the purity of the life out there. And this is really a reward for her hometown fans. They will be there, you know, they will pack the place. They will pack the bar outside the place. They will pack the nightclub. They will pack the pool outside the place. They'll all show up. This is going to be a big damn party for them. And there's a few of the younger talents from the area on the undercard. Remember, Joel Diaz's gym is there. There's some other desert gyms. Big Bear isn't that far away, and all of a sudden it's a hotbed again. So it's a nice little venue to put these fights at where, you know, a crowd of, I think if they really jammed everybody in and didn't tell the fire marshal, they can get 3,800 people in there. And it'll sound like there's 15,000 there. So it'll be interesting to see. The opponent is a late replacement opponent, but you know what? I mean, who are we kidding? Probably nobody remembered who she was going to originally fight anyway. This is a young woman who's 22 out of Edmonton, Alberta, who's 13-1, and she's got 2 knockouts. And all her fights so far have been either in the Philippines in her early career, or I take that back, not the Philippines, the Czech Republic, um, which I imagine maybe that's her personal family history. And then the rest of them have been in Canada. So, good for her taking the fight on short notice. This is a massive step up, although she is ranked in the top 10 in the flyweight division for the women. So, yeah, she's a legitimate challenger, but I have a feeling she'll walk away pretty banged up like most of Gabby's other opponents lately.
Yeah, banged up, beat up, punished. Because
Demoralized.
that's what Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Gabby Fundora does. Again, Collazo and Vayson, Fundora and Kubicki. That's going to take place on the 20th in Indio, California. On that same evening in Canada, Gail and Daniel unification bout at 108 pounds when it comes to the women. Sarah Bailey fighting Evelin Bermudez. For fans, serious fans of women's boxing, you will remember Bermudez um, and her what was a terrific bout back in 2022, almost 3 years ago now, against Costa Valley in Carson, California. Valley won by, to me, which was a nip and tuck decision. The scorecards doesn't indicate how close that fight was. I remember watching it live. Fantastic bout. The same Yokasta Valle who gave Sinisi Estrada a good tussle. I think it was last year, no, either late last year or late 2023. I can't remember offhand. But anyway, that speaks to how good of a fighter Bermudez is from Argentina. She holds 2 of the belts at 108, while Bailey holds a third. Gail and Daniel. Fight is going to take place in Canada. I believe it's in Bailey's backyard. Let me make sure. Yes, in Bailey's backyard. Though Bailey only has 6 fights, I talented, but I wonder overall, does she have the experience to deal with Bermudez, who is a little bit taller, a little bit longer? Um, though Bermudez tends to fight straight up and she can get a little cocky in there, when she's on her A game, Gail, she's an outstanding fighter.
Yep. And a unification fight, after all, is what all fighters want in their career. I mean, that's first step after you've got a belt is you want more belts. So she's going to get their chance. She only has 8 fights, but again, on the women's side, if they want to lean in and stay busy and take fights, they can move themselves up pretty quickly. So sometimes you see these very thin records. You think, this is going to be a unification fight? Yes, it is.
Indeed. Final word on this, Daniel, if you have any before we sign off.
That's going to be an entertaining fight. Like, overall, it doesn't matter if it's men or women. The lower weight divisions always bring it.
Amen. That is absolutely true. One more fight I'm just going to mention. There is also this weekend, in addition to these 2 cards, the Golden Boy card is the main fight card this weekend, but there is an overtime boxing card as well going on Saturday night. And Tiara Brown, who defeated Sky Nicholson and took her belt away, is getting her first title defense. So have to speak up for her as well. And actually, I will have an interview with Tiara posted later tonight on my YouTube page. And she was an absolute delight to interview. And I will also put in a plug. She just started her own YouTube channel, Tiara Brown Boxing, where she's posting behind the scenes stories about her training and her background. And very, very well done.
Excellent. And we'll end things on that note. I want to thank everybody who joined us on YouTube. I want to thank Compliance for commenting. as well doing the live episode. I begin the show with ladies first. I end the show with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com. For those who want to talk all things boxing with you, let the folks know where they can find you.
Well, ladies are going to bring you some boxing entertainment this weekend. I hope they all have some good fights, good competitive fights. Thank you, Busy. I see a very nice compliment there.
Shout out, Busy. I know her from the fragrance world. She promised that she was going to listen to us. Appreciate it,
Well,
Busy.
there
Thank you
you
so much.
go. Thank you very much. And if you want to hear more, see more, you can find my columns at nyfights.com and my content at Gail Falkenthal on Boxing on YouTube.
I'll go to you, Daniel, from 4Boxing News and the Inscriber for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, folks, you can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, IG, pretty much almost every single major social media platform. Rockus99, RAWKUC99. If you catch me on there, I'm not always on the road when we're doing this show. You guys just caught me in the middle of the road trip, but it's always fun to talk. It's always a great time, especially after the weekend that we've had. It was a weekend where it could have turned into a disaster, but it turned out to be a great, great event. And hopefully, we're able to kickstart this a little bit of a rebound towards the end of the year and start of 2026 for boxing.
For those who follow me on Twitter to Top Boxing Music Fitness, you can do so on Twitter because I refuse to call it X, Brother JR76. You can also find me on IG, Brother JRSC. As I said earlier, Pound for Pound Boxing Report has basically official sponsor now. Navrod Fragrances, I'll put it up for here. Use the code that you see right now, Michael WP4P. You get 15% off on any products from Navrod Fragrances. May I strongly suggest to those who are on the panel or anybody who's checking this out, please check out Irrelevant, which is a more of a spring summer kind of fragrance cologne. Diomari, that's D''OMARI. That's more of a fall winter scent, something for the cooler weather. She also has body care products as well. Again, use that code if you wish to check out Navrod Fragrances. Her stuff was very affordable. Nothing is over $59 on the site, so you can basically get a full bottle of her stuff for $59. Take that 50% off. So that's a pretty good deal right there. Her fragrances are long lasting. I can attest to that because I have both. She's coming out with a third fragrance in 2026 as well. Again, use that code Michael W P4P. You get 15% off on all things from Navrod Fragrances. On the next episode, if we're back next week, we will mainly we'll probably do a recap if we decide to do a show next week, and that recap of Collazo and Vayson. Again, Collazo defending his unified championship titles at 105 pounds. One of my favorite fighters, again, Gabriela Fundora, fighting on the undercard. Fundora defending her undisputed women's flyweight title, as well as that same evening unification bout over in Canada. Sara Bailey fighting Evelin Bermudez to a unification bout for the women at 108 pounds. Again, I want to thank everybody who checked us out live. For those who would thank everybody for checking us out on YouTube. If you do so, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. You'll get notifications for all future episodes. For Gail of nyfights.com, for Daniel of 4Boxing News and the Inscriber, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 475 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night. And once again, our condolences, my thoughts and prayers to the family of one Ricky Hatton.